Hey everyone, for this video I traveled to Columbus, Georgia to interview Jonny Hale, who is the author of the Harpeggi Quick Start Scale and Chord book and a very dear friend and wonderful Harpeggi player. So I hope you enjoy the video. Jonny.
Welcome to Harpejji Talk, Artist Spotlight with Landon Meeks.
No, Harpeggi Spotlight with Jonny Hale.
And Landon Meeks.
And Landon Meeks. We're here to talk about Harpeggi.
Harpejji, as we call it.
Harpeggi, down in the South. PG.
We call it the PG in the South. I called it the wrong name, Harpejji, for at least 8 months.
Right.
No one contacted me to tell me that that sounded stupid. My feelings were hurt. I feel like the community at large was confused.
Right.
But we've worked it out now.
We've had people call us and be like, we have a bet with our friends on how to say it.
Yeah, I'm sure they're getting calls, hey, I heard I need a Harpejji. And y'all were like, well, I don't think we make that. But we have Harpejjis for you.
Yes, we have Harpejjis. Anyways, Jonny is an excellent guitarist and musician. And you may have seen him on YouTube. He does lots of really good tutorials. When you first got the Harpeggi, you were making tutorials on things, you wish you knew when you started.
You like how to say it.
Yeah, like basics.
Yeah. I actually made... I don't think we used it at there's a place called River University. It's like they have a music school, and we were going to use it there. I made like a 10-hour getting started playing Harpejji. I said PG the entire 10 hours. It was special.
Right.
It was really special. And then we sorted it out. But yeah, that's what kind of got me going on doing the tutorials. Was I thought it would just be fun to like learn with everybody.
Right. What were the things that like you figured out within like the first week? You're like, okay, I really wish I knew this when I first opened it.
I think the biggest thing is that you want to look at the instrument, especially if you have, like I have a G16 that has the letters on it, and you want to look at it left to right. And really quickly you realize like, oh no, like this is very much vertical. Mm-hmm. And the more you lean into that, I think the faster you get good at playing, especially when it comes to, I think that moving left to right, if you're having trouble, if you feel like your playing is incredibly staccato, you're probably playing a lot of left to right motions. And there's a lot of things that you just get hung up on. Like even playing C to D, not that that's legato or staccato or whatever, they're obviously both playing. But if you play vertically or hammer, there's a sense of legato that you can't get moving left to right. And I think when you first sit down with the instrument, you go like, oh, it sounds really cool, but it's like super organ-like in the sense that there's not a sustain pedal. And if I let go, the notes are gone. Right. And so that was one of the very, very first things that you like first impressions, like, oh dang man, like if I lift up, it's over. And then you try and add a reverb or try and add a delay or whatever. You try and do things and you're like, well, that's not really doing it because it's just muddy. And then I wish I would have kind of leaned into sooner. We were even talking last night about the fact that the longer you play, as we've watched some people progress in their technical ability to have dynamic range and movement, it's like you watch them really close and it's like, oh, they're you can see that their mental framework for playing the instrument is this direction.
Right.
It's not left to right as much. And when you're first looking at the markings, you want to go left to right.
Yeah, that's the piano.
Very much a piano thing. Exactly. And it's so piano-y. And so you want that. Well, and really, too, even though the frets are moving this way, as a guitar player, there's just something about, like, you're holding a guitar like this. Right. You go this way, but this doesn't do that.
Exactly. If somebody had never seen a Harpeggi, like they're musically inclined, right? Mm-hmm. And they sit down here, where would you show them to start, right? Because like initially, right, for a C chord, they're gonna do this. Right?
Yeah. If you sit down with somebody and just say play, they're going to just outline. This is what everybody that I've ever sat down with, first thing is like, oh, okay, there's do re mi, and I think the most instantly gratifying thing to show somebody is to split a chord. Like the most instantly gratifying thing that I show, like, because then even, especially if somebody's not musical, if they are musical, they tend to see through their instrument to the harpeggi,
Right.
which actually slows the process down. If you get somebody on it and you go, it's not a piano, it's not a good, okay, don't even worry, it's not even an instrument. Just, it's called playing for a reason.
Yeah.
And then you show them like this is a fifth, and then here's another fifth, right? Like we'll just the 2 sets of 5. Just be musical with that, and just move vertically.
Yeah, and you're already making music.
And then they go like, well, you go left and right, yeah. And that is something that I don't think is explored enough on Harpeggi, is the kind of the theory you get for free, like especially the way that jazz works. You don't get that on any other instrument the way you get it on Harpeggi, because it's set up as 2 whole tone scales. And so if you approach even a chording like that, where you actually split out, where a major 7 is actually just 2 fifths.
Stack, and a minor 7 is...
Yeah, if you go ahead and like finger those things that way and then start moving around and realizing those interactions, and you start looking at those notes and then thinking about jazz standards and the chromatic approach and the things that usually happen that cost thousands of hours on other instruments to get, they just fall in your hands on Harpeggi. I think that's the reason that guys like Corey Henry just were like, oh, you know, and Jacob Collier.
When we first started talking, like we got into the Barry Harris thing really quick. If you want to get into some deep Harpeggi theory lore, look into Barry Harris Brothers and Sisters.
Yes.
Because the brothers and sisters are already set up for you in lines, right? Diagonal, whole tone across. And it's just a system that makes building chords just there.
Yes, I think that the way that we that Barry Harris would be incredibly upset while he said this, which was hilarious to watch those old videos if you can find them. He's so upset with like jazz school,
right,
and how jazz is taught. And the reason he's upset with it is because he was there in the beginning, was taught by the first guys, and that is not how jazz was approached. That's not the way classical was approached. Nobody had major 7, major 9. Those upper chord extensions, and the way we say those in a real book or a fake book or whatever you want to call it these days, how we notate chords implies that a major 7 is this one big structure, where that is not the way that jazz musicians or classical musicians were trained forever. They're looking at that as stacks of triads on top of each other, as stacks of fifths on top of each other, and those movements are happening as separate components. They're not thinking G major 7. They're thinking of a fifth here and a fifth here. And so that's so fundamentally different. And if you run down that rabbit trail, if you run down that rabbit trail, it will change how you're approaching this instrument.
Right. So if you were to give a theory lesson to somebody on the Harpeggi, only using the Harpeggi.
I actually love that. I did a couple of videos that were they were just like introduction to theory on my YouTube channel, and I was immediately like, well, you can't do it on guitar.
No.
It's just so hard to see, because it was introduction, like maybe this person doesn't play much, right? My thought is always like, I do a lot of praise and worship ministry, like a lot of Christian ministry. That's a lot of volunteers. So like I'm thinking in my mind, like, okay, if I'm introducing a volunteer, somebody that just wants to know about music, to music theory, like what do I do? And immediately it was, well, guitar's out, you can't see where the notes are. And I landed on doing those videos with the Harpeggi because it is even easier to see than the piano. If you don't know how a piano's laid out, the black keys and the white keys are a little confusing.
Right.
And so this is just so obviously always a whole step, always a major third, always a fourth. And it doesn't matter. It's just so
the fingering
symmetrical.
is always the same.
It's always the same no matter what. The notes, not only are the fingerings the same, but like literally just the note locations are always identical. And so I did those just on this.
Right.
And the thing that was cool about it is that instead of having to go like, this is C and this is D, you're able to immediately get to what actually matters in music, which is this is what a whole step sounds like. This is what a whole step looks like. This is what a half step looks like. This is what this is what they look like. This is what they sound like. Because that's how music is built. So the vast majority of us have relative pitch, and this is a relative pitch machine. And so when you approach it that way, it wants to be, even the theory wants to be taught a little different, because you're immediately seeing intervals, not letters. Because the reason we go with the letters on, say, something like traditional theory with piano is because the black and the white keys are awkwardly... Why isn't there one between E and F?
Exactly. Yeah, look, for me, the symmetry of it is, like, amazing when it comes to improvisions, right? Because, like, on piano, your improvisions are going to change depending on what key. Like, what you're going to play is going to be different based on the key because of what's available.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, whereas, like, you physically have to make choices based on physical restrictions.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas this, like, I hear the semitone and it's like, I don't know. It's right there.
It's yes. Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, and if you start getting, it really is also, not on top of the theory, it is a pretty incredible way to start getting your ear more in tune.
Exactly.
With that's a half step, that's a whole step, that's a major third, that's a minor third. You start hearing those things differently. When you start, we'll keep using this example, but when you start hearing that's a fifth, that's a fifth, when you start hearing that things like that major 7 chord that you love are just 2 fifths stacked on top of each other, you go like, oh, wait, what? You know, oh. And then you start hearing differently. It starts being a lot easier to suss out like what that big stack is in, you know, your favorite tune, whatever that might be.
So is it more piano or guitar?
Yes. I think the faster you quit thinking of it as either one, the quicker you get good. Right. I think that you were talking about kind of what I would have liked to hear early on. I wish that somebody would have just said like, you'll get there faster if you quit thinking of it. Because I'm mainly a guitar player. If you quit thinking of it through the lens of guitar, you'll get better at harpeggi. It's not the same instrument. And there has never been an instrument set up to more readily make a human being play than this.
Right.
It's easier than piano. You can fall on piano and make some noises, but you immediately start running into literal physical issues with sharps and flats and what fingers can go where. This does not have those restrictions. And then it just, on guitar, you know, you can kind of plunk around for hours and not hear anything but thud. You know, this is just instantly notes. Anybody can jump on it. And I think the more you just play, the faster you're going to get good.
Right. So, this is kind of a packed question.
Yes.
What is the ideal harpeggi trio?
All playing harpeggies? Everybody's on a harpeggi, or like
no, a harpeggi in a band setting.
Oh, harpeggi in a band
like
setting.
An organ trio, but harpeggi trio. What does that look like?
Oh, okay. So there is a harpeggi in a band. I think drummer. I think drummer's obvious. Harpeggi, we have to have obviously.
Right.
And then I would think probably piano would lend itself to the most options.
Right.
You always have like. You could just pick who was doing the bass thing.
Right.
At that point. If you go bass player or guitar player, they're going to do that thing where you could potentially step on them, or just kind of as the harpeggi player, you kind of just become the bass player if there's a guitar player.
Right.
Or vice versa. If you have a bass player in your harpeggi trio, you kind of stay off of this side and you kind of de facto become keys and electric ish.
I think I had Micaiah Giddings on the last one. And he started doing this thing where he's got a whirly, and he's got a drum track, and he has the harpeggi, and it's like, bang, comes together so good.
Yeah.
I think that to me is...
Some kind of keys like that. Yeah. And then the keys being able to do... You could do just piano, but you're right. If you had something that was like keys, like something with a Nord where you could do a whirly, you could do a Rhodes, you could do... There's like the combinations at that point are like pretty endless, what you could get out of that combination of people would be pretty special. I think the other thing you probably could do, but you would have to be a monster harpeggi player, is you could get away with it, drums, harpeggi, and a melodic instrument, because the harpeggi fills up so much space.
Yeah.
So if you really worked your arrangements out, you could cover bass keys. Right. You could cover...
Walter could.
Yes, Walter could totally, and does, cover both instruments, and then you could have like a sax. Something that's like just a melodic instrument.
Well, I want to talk about what we did. So I called you, right? Mm-hmm. Because he's made a lot of really good tutorials on Instagram about the harpeggi. I was like, this guy's got some insight. I want to talk to him. And so we started talking about, what the harpeggi community needs.
Yes.
Like what is needed, to get players, playing more, getting, the foundation. And we decided there needs to be a harpeggi book. So Jonny and I wrote the Harpeggi Quick Start Scale and Chord book.
Yes.
And
originally Method 1.
Originally
we thought it would be like Method 1.
Right.
And then we realized like that's actually something a little different for later.
Yeah, because most harpeggi players, they're already musical.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
So a method, isn't necessary. But basically for however long, a few months, we were just diving into what is the best way to play chords and scales.
Completely nerding out.
Right. And we figured out so many things that we had like internalized but never verbalized, right? Like the pinch. Like we neither of us were doing this shape just naturally.
Never.
We just worked it out. But we never said, this is just...
Yeah, or even named it. So what the pinch is your thumb and any other finger on the same fret.
Right.
So anytime a pinch would be this, anytime that your thumb and your index, or your thumb and your middle, or your thumb and your ring is on the exact same fret, you pretty quickly realize that this is better. But nobody had ever really said that.
Right.
And then there's other chord shapes and stuff that it's like, we realized really quickly, especially as we started getting into more advanced scales as well,
right.
When we were starting to kind of lay out like this is the way to get around quickly, it became really apparent that this was extremely inefficient.
Right.
At all times.
Right. For the major scale, especially, just because a lot of harpeggi players are, keys guys.
Yes.
They're going to play the major scale like, and, this is it's just the pinch. But your hand naturally lays here.
Yeah.
And that's just...
Yeah. And as we kind of explored other people's solutions for that too, you find some really interesting ones. Like, I love the way Jacob plays harpeggi, but the way that he kind of solved for the pinch is like he doesn't use his thumbs. He's just like, you know what, those are useless. And he just like, now I wish I would cut my thumbs off if I could play harpeggi like Jacob.
Right.
But like, he's getting a lot of mileage here. He's barely ever using the thumb.
Right.
And that's just another kind of solution to the pinch being like a technical problem on the instrument.
And there's other things too that, we both decided were important, especially, in the left hand, utilizing the pinky. Right? Stuff like Corey Henry. Like if you're watching Corey Henry,
does that
he's walking fourths and fifths. Like in his bass all the time. He's using his pinky, he's reaching down here. And, we just started talking about the things that we thought were important in harpeggi players, just the foundations of playing harpeggi.
What's the thing that you wish you knew the most now? What is the frontier, the current, the latest and greatest? Harpeggi is going this way. These are the newest, greatest playing techniques.
Right.
Theory things, approaches.
So we got into last night especially. Mm-hmm. This guy Tom Harriman, he has cue Tom Harriman clip.
Tom, please comment on this video. Let us know that you're here. Leave us contact information. We love you.
we were blown away.
Yeah.
Last night we were up for like 3 hours talking about this guy's technique and breaking it down, and we realized the way he's playing is, again, like we were saying, he is not thinking about the harpeggi left to right. Mm-mm. He is this way, like almost
more than I thought you could be.
Right, and a lot of 3 notes on one string thing like. And getting your thumb underneath the rest of your fingers.
In his left hand too. Like, we have kind of all started approaching like a triad like that, where he's doing this, but he's doing it to stay vertical,
right?
Where he can reach over into these other notes,
right?
Which is incredibly cool,
right?
Very smooth, and I think that we were kind of doing a rough estimate. Probably half of the notes that he plays in the cover that he put out, which was what, Yesterday by the Beatles.
Yeah.
In roughly half the notes, he's strumming with the same hand. We were talking last night. If you just asked him to play a major scale, what would he do? I don't think he would do this. I think he would pluck that note and then go up, because that is a different feel and a different texture than a tap.
Right. You can get so much more dynamics out of this note. Like, I can play this so softly, or I can, which he did a lot.
A lot. I don't know how he was. Yeah. There's several times, but just the dynamic range was something that you get the sense that it's in there, right. But to watch somebody demonstrate it with one of the most beautiful arrangements of Yesterday, regardless of what instrument it was on. Yes, that was one of the prettiest arrangements of Yesterday I've ever heard.
Right.
And so to hear an arrangement that was that world class be played with that much dynamic range was discouraging and exciting all at the same time. It felt like, man, I've never played. I don't know that I don't know. I thought I was getting somewhere. It had to have been like hearing Jimi Hendrix when electric guitar had only been out for a couple of years, and like you were a country guy, and then like you heard that, and it was like, it does that? What do you mean it does that? What? That's not. I have an electric guitar. It doesn't do that. It felt like that. Like I didn't know that without effects. I mean, he has a nice verb and delay, right. But nothing over the top. It was just gorgeous. His touch is just unbelievable, and so I think that's kind of the next level that everybody's going to start shooting at over the next few months. That's what I'm shooting at.
Yeah, me too. Well, anyways, thanks, Johnny, for doing this, and thanks for having me here.
Thanks for being here.
Always great to hang out. Always great.
Amazing to hang out. Artist Spotlight, Landon Meeks, ladies and gentlemen, the man.